Sly 3 Honor Among Thieves is the sequel to my favorite Sly game, Sly 2 Band of Thieves. Sly 3 is a stealthy 3D platformer with good movement, and some improvements from Sly 2. Sly and his gang this time are trying to unlock the Cooper Vault, but a villain has set up a base. They're trying to break into it and prevent Sly from getting the loot in it. The Vita version, like the other two games, is a remaster of the PS2 version of the game. If you haven't watched my Sly 2 review, I recommend watching it before this one, as there will be a few things I'll reference from it. The same playable characters from Sly 2 return, along with some new characters that join Sly's gang, each with unique and varied gameplay styles. Sly 3 follows the same format of Sly 2 with having a small open world-like design with missions scattered around, which are called jobs. The available jobs are marked with waypoints that appear for a few seconds when touching the rear touchpad on the Vita. One great addition in Sly 3 is there is a circle pane that goes in the direction of the waypoint, which really helps with finding which way to look to see the waypoint. The tutorials aren't done in the best way. You go to a room called the hazard room where you slowly get taught the controls in a test setting. It's not the most enjoyable way to have the tutorials, but luckily only the first tutorial section is required. All the other ones will ask if you would like to go to the hazard room to learn about a character's abilities, and you can choose not to do it. If you played Sly 2, you could skip all the tutorials because the controls are identical, and any new abilities are usually explained in the jobs in a much better way than the hazard rooms. Each character has the same basic movement from Sly 2, but there are some new additions to some characters' base moveset. Bentley is much more enjoyable to play. He has a wider variety of different movement options. His movement is a bit basic at the start, but gets better the further you get into the game and purchase new gadgets for him. The most useful gadget for Bentley is the quadruple jump for his chair, which allows him to get up to much higher places and jump across further gaps, which makes platforming around him a lot better and more enjoyable. Bentley also has some much more useful and enjoyable gadgets to use, which have more variation. Murray and Bentley are now able to pickpocket enemies, but unfortunately Bentley has to use a gadget for pickpocketing, and the Vita only has the ability to assign one gadget at a time. But luckily you can easily switch gadgets and don't pickpocket guards too often, usually only if they have a shiny pocket. Being able to pickpocket guards with the main cast of characters is a really good addition. Another change in Sly 3 with pickpocketing is items obtained from the pickpocketing guards with shining pockets is that instead of manually needing to sell them on ThiefNet in the hideout, it automatically gets sold right when you pickpocket it, which is quite useful. Sly's moveset has been kept the same as Sly 2, which isn't a bad thing as his movement is quite enjoyable and versatile, with the environments helping to keep his movement from becoming stale. The paraglider, which is one of the best gadgets in the game for Sly, has been changed to be unlocked earlier, which is really good and gives a lot more usage for it. The controls with the paraglider have also been greatly improved, allowing you to turn and go backwards much sharper in a way which gives you greater control. The game is split into episodes, and each episode has its own hub-like world where all the missions take place in, like Sly 2. Each episode takes place in a different part of the world, helping to make them feel unique. The design in some places feels a bit rushed or simplistic, like with the job complete screen. It's more basic compared to Sly 2, just having an image of the character with the text job complete. The prototype of Sly 3 had it a bit less simplistic, with the panning background that appears on the episode select. Not sure why they didn't keep it like this. I feel it's much better. Most of the platforming feels decent and varied. The world design is quite similar to Sly 2, which is good. The minigames are also quite fun and designed well to fit in with the game. Unfortunately, the collectibles are gone in Sly 3, no bottles, and no treasures. With them missing, there was less of a reason to explore the hubs as there is nothing to find. I quite enjoyed looking around for the bottles in Sly 2 and liked the reward of giving a new move. Not sure if Sly 3 had a rushed development and to finish on time they cut placing the bottles and treasures, to save time and not need to add a gadget from the vault. The difficulty feels like an extension of Sly 2's difficulty. The game starts off around the difficulty of the end of Sly 2 and gets harder from there. Playing through Sly 2 before 3 gives a nice difficulty curve and makes the start of the game not too easy, but for people who haven't played Sly 2 may find the game a bit challenging. Some of the bosses are quite challenging and have unskippable dialogue that replays after every time you die even if you've heard it before. They should have either made the dialogue skippable or not play once you've heard it. The dialogue also plays in the Master Thief challenges, which are even harder and makes them a bit more of a pain to retry. Sly 3 has optional challenges called Master Thief challenges. They are sections from the missions in the story but with an added challenge, which challenge your platforming and minigame skills. The challenges vary from having less health, doing the challenge with a limited amount of time, or completing a certain objective. Some have a twist to them too. The difficulty of the Master Thief challenges feels a bit inconsistent. Some with a timer either have the timer quite lenient or quite tight. Some are a bit easy and some are more fitting of the name Master Thief challenge. They are a great extra optional challenge, at least some are, and a few of them took me quite a few retries before I managed to beat them. Overall, they are a nice added challenge and completely optional, so no one would have to struggle through them for the main story or have to do it if they didn't want to. The story is about Sly trying to get into his family's vault, but soon finds out a villain has set up an elaborate base there and is going to need to gather new allies to be able to infiltrate it. The story is overall decent, but at times feels a bit unclear and not structured too well of what the current goal is for the episode and how it relates to getting to the Cooper Vault or why they decide to go somewhere. But the story does have some great moments though and is quite engaging, throwing in some interesting concepts. The kinds of cutscenes in the game are the same as in Sly 2, with Banakicom cutscenes, 2D and 3D cutscenes. Overall, Sly 3 performs the best out of all the games in the trilogy, keeping a mostly steady capped 30 FPS throughout, only occasionally dipping a little bit. I played the game overclocked and uncapped to 60 FPS, it would most of the time stay within the 50 to 60 FPS range but would have moments where it would dip below that and a few specific maps where it would dip down to 30 FPS. But going down to 30 FPS was a bit odd and maybe something to do with how I was uncapping the framerate because it would keep a consistent 30 FPS even when not overclocked. Uncapping it to 60 FPS on the Vita had a minor graphical glitch in one of the episodes, but it wasn't too bad. Although the framerate isn't 60 FPS like the PS3 version, the graphics are almost identical to it, and have aged quite well for a PS2 game. The environments are appealing to look at and have decent variety from all the different places in the world Sly and his gang go to. Overall, the music is decent with quite enjoyable tracks. It doesn't have anything as memorable as Dimitri's theme from Sly 2, but the music is still good, and memorable. You've been listening to some of the music in the background of this review. The mood of the music matches the mood and theming of the episode quite well, and with each episode taking place in a different part of the world or having a unique theme helps to make each track feel unique and different. The sound design is similar to Sly 2 with not really any notable changes, which is fine as all the sound effects were well designed and made the actions you do feel satisfying and more enjoyable. Overall, Sly 3 is quite good, improving on the moveset of characters to make them more enjoyable, having a fun extra optional challenge mode, and appealing visuals. but it is weighed down a bit by not having any collectibles, less episodes, some rushed designs, and the story feeling a bit less cohesive. Overall it is my least favorite Sly game in the trilogy, but it's still really enjoyable to play. Sly 1 would be my second favorite, with Sly 2 as my favorite Sly game overall. Sly 3 took around the same time as Sly 2 to 100%, taking me around 17 hours and 17 minutes, 20 minutes less than 100% in Sly 2. The added challenge of the Master Thief challenges adds a decent amount of playtime to the game, as a fair amount of them I had to try multiple times to beat, but the challenge is enjoyable. The rating I will give for the Sly Cooper trilogy is a love rating. I could play these games so much, and overall I really enjoyed the Sly Cooper trilogy and highly recommend getting it, as all the games in it are really enjoyable 3D platformers, and the Vita version is a great way to play them on the go, and doesn't sacrifice much compared to the PS3 version. Thank you so much for watching the last part of my review for the Sly trilogy. If you enjoyed my reviews and would be interested in seeing more of my Beating All English Vita Games project, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe, so you don't miss any new videos. If you would like to watch me stream my Beating All English Vita Games project, you can come watch me stream it live over on Twitch, link in the description.